when it started, as far as I investigated, Hajj is known to have started long, long ago. It's not only a tradition inherited from, tradition left by Hadhrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam or his son Hadhrat Ismail, but there are some references from which we can infer that the tradition of Hajj went much, much further, much much earlier, yes, further back in time. For instance, the vision of Hazrat Ibn Arabi tells us that he once in a vision he saw some people performing Hajj who did not appear to be people like other human beings. There was some difference, in their style and habits. And while the introduction was being, they were being introduced to each other, he mentioned Hazrat Adam, that let me recollect the whole thing. It was the alien, to him he was an alien, who introduced himself, and Hazrat, who mentioned Adam first? You remember that? I think it was Hazrat Ibn Arabi who says that I mentioned Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and he said, which Adam you are talking about? He said, which Adam? We know only the Adam who happened to be so many thousand years ago. We said, no, we are the children of an Adam who lived here about 40,000 years before. And we used to perform Hajj like you do, and we used to make the circuits. So this is a reference which is not enough to prove a point, but it's an oblique reference to what might have happened. Had it been just that, it would not have gained any serious importance. But Hazrat Ibn Arabi, while quoting this vision of his, also points out that this vision of mine reminded me of a tradition of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which said that there were scores of Adams, various ages, at various ages, and the beginning of those Adams we don't know, but there were many before, even before 40,000 years. So he also mentioned the time. What was the time mentioned by Hazrat Ibn Arabi in that? Of other referring to that tradition of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I think 40,000 is the one he mentioned himself about his own encounter with those people. He mentioned the word 40,000, figure 40,000. But that reminded him of a tradition of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which it was said that many Adams have come before, and the time was of a larger scale, much larger scale than this. Yes.
The author of Sirat al-Halabiyya cited also the tradition and this word of dunya.
Yes, it's Sirat al-Halabiyya. But do you remember that tradition?
Maybe Momini cited in Tafsir in Surah al-Baqarah.
Yes, but still you are leading from one place to another, but you are not telling it. All right.
Just study from that place.
Yes. Anyway, there is another way of looking at it, that the Holy Quran, that is the most important authority on any subject. The Holy Quran refers to the building or rebuilding of Khana Kaaba by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. The Holy Quran tells us, Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nasi lallazi bi Bakkata Mubarakam wa hudam. the very first house was built for the sake of mankind, for the purpose of worship of Allah. That is Mubarakan Hudan lil Alameen. Now that shows that this was the very first house. And we know positively that Hadhrat Ibrahim ﷺ was not the founder of this house at all, because it is mentioned that he was raising the obliterated, from the obliterated foundations. Yes. So that shows that the house belonged to a much earlier age. Now, if it was built at a much earlier age, there should have been some traditions and rites belonging to this house, and that means that Hajj dates back to much earlier period. And also, once I found out about the Hajj, the custom of Hajj, from other sources. I studied from the other sources, and encyclopedia in particular, and it told us that this is a custom which is a universal custom, and it is found everywhere in the world, in every people, and they have their own special meccas, localized places of Hajj. So this tradition is a worldwide universal tradition which has been inherited by the children of Adam from long ages before. So that seems to be one of the fundamentals of religion. Otherwise all these various people shouldn't have inherited. And if it was so, it was a fundamental feature of religion, then for the awwala bayat that had to be there. So all these pointers present a forceful argument put together, if not individually, in favor of our believing that Hajj was performed at much earlier times than we think. And Khana Kaaba, whenever it was built for the first time, it was also used for the purpose of Hajj Baitullah. Later on, now the second part of your question, later on when, or even previously perhaps, whenever it was Khana Kaaba was invaded by infidels and captured by infidels, or let's say when the people became corrupted and the concept of unity of God gave way to the concept of many gods, ultimately the same place became the place of idol worship. And this is exactly how Hadhrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam found it. And at that time, the traditions of Hajj were also influenced by the people's religion. The result was that although they made the circuits all right, but they also worshipped their various idols, and also practiced some very profane customs. And those who had absolutely no place in God, for worship of God. For instance, people, the Arabs before Muhammad used to make circuits completely naked, and this was one of the customs which was put out by Muhammad forever, and he said that this is not going to be practiced again. And he chose Hazrat Ali karramallahu wajhahu to announce this to the Meccans, that from now on you will never be permitted to perform Hajj with your old customs. This is why Hazrat Imam Abu Hanifa and many other Muslim scholars of great worth have inferred that what Hadhrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood from the verse prohibiting the infidels to go near Mecca or near Baitullah was not a physical approach, but it was the religious approach that was forbidden. And this is why Hazrat Imam Abu Hanifa has openly said, said it in so many words, and some other scholars have also gone very close to this.